Welcome, welcome to the Empowering Transformation series. I am so excited today to have Marie with me. Fueled with a passion for guiding people in their physical and emotional wellness, Marie became a board certified holistic health practitioner in the fall of 2012. After continuing her education in the transformational coaching method, Marie stepped into her primary gifts of coaching by helping her clients to be the heroes in their own lives and achieve lasting transformation. And her, yes, in her years as a practitioner, Marie also co-created an online educational program for practitioners, traveled as a public speaker, and helped to build a thriving wellness center. Marie brings her experience as a holistic practitioner, health life business coach, bioresonance practitioner, and educator to help empower people to love themselves without feeling selfish about it. Marie lives and loves in Atlanta, Georgia, with her husband, Thomas, two daughters, two cats, and a dog. Welcome, welcome, Maria. I'm so excited to have you with me for this powerful experience that we will all have together.
I am so excited about this. From the second that you brought this to me, like it's just been tumbling in my head, and I've just been really excited. And even when I was thinking about what to bring to the table here, I couldn't help but just keep replaying the fact that this is called the Empowering Transformational Series. And I'm a transformational coach. And so I was like, what is it that is so unique about transformation? And what do I hear kind of over and over again that I think people would be like, oh. And the thing that kept coming to mind is most of my clients, this isn't their first time trying to do change work. This isn't their first time trying to work on transformation. They've been most of the time steeped in it for years, but the problem that they've mostly encountered was that it didn't stick, right? That they tried and really good and then fail, and then do really good and then fail. Their words, not mine. But just really feeling like, why didn't it work? Why is this? I'm doing everything right. Why am I not getting the results? I'm doing everything, why am I? And having come from that experience myself, it made me do a lot of research over the last decade as to what's keeping people stuck. And the truth is, I want to start by telling everybody that's watching this, it's not your fault.
It's like, okay, nice to know.
Yeah, like it's not.
We're doing the best we can. It's like, wait, I'm back here.
Exactly. Yeah. And we feel like we're chasing our tail. And the truth is, that's what I want to really begin with is it's not your fault. There is a biological system in us that keeps us in that pattern because we know how it works and we don't know how to undo it. But once I explain to you how it works, you're going to be like, oh my gosh. And then I'm going to give you guys some direction and how to undo it. But my free gift to everybody that everybody's going to see is a 5-part video series in how to get that transformation to stick. So I'm so excited to be able to gift that to everybody. I'm starting with the gift. I'm not waiting till the end of the video. I want you to know right now that I love you and I'm for you and I've got free stuff for you. So I'm going to begin with that. So when I think about what keeps us stuck, it really comes back to neurolinguistics. It really comes back to our brains and the way that they were set up. And the way that I like to explain it is, if you would imagine for a second that your brain was like a sandwich with a bottom, a middle, and a top. And that bottom is your kind of limbic system. That's the part of you that's the oldest part of your brain. We frequently hear it called the critter brain because it is the part of us that's just trying to keep us alive. It's the part of us that if you touch a hot stove, you're like, without having to tell yourself to pull your hand away, because it's learning something. And it's always learning from experiences and perceived experiences. And because of that, it is always just trying to keep us okay. But it's also searching for 3 additional things other than just keeping us alive: love, safety, belonging. Now, keeping us alive does fall within that safety realm, but we all are in search of and in need of love of some kind, love and care. And belonging is a really big one. And people, I think, underestimate that. When you were back in middle school and high school, when you would bend to kind of fit into the crowd, or if you ever found yourself doing that in a relationship, my boyfriend likes football, so now I'm learning all about football, right? Like, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, that need for belonging is huge. And it's not a social need. Believe it or not, this is a very old biological need, because there was a time that if you didn't have that belonging, you didn't have food, you didn't have resources, you didn't have protection within that group. And to be cast out of that group, to not have belonging, could equate to death, which again falls under that safety thing that part of your brain is really trying to speak into. So that love, safety, and belonging thing is huge. I'm going to come back to it.
Now, and
The
I know
middle
that this
part,
limbic aspect part, it's, you know, the amygdala releases these stress hormones,
it does.
and then we're just stressing out and can't receive those things.
Exactly. Which brings us to that middle part, feelings and emotions. I love them. They can be good guides, but they can also be liars and switch hitters and go with either the top part of the brain or the bottom part of the brain, whichever one's loudest at that moment. And so therefore I struggle to trust that part of my mind. And I have to consistently bring it back to, okay, where's this really coming from? Which part of the brain is this really aligning with? And then there's the upper part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. This is my favorite part of my brain. Can I just say that? It's the part of us that connects us to something higher than ourselves, be that God or the universe or the whole or the creation itself, or just the connected oneness that exists out there. You know, whatever you want to personally call it is fine, but it connects to something bigger than just you as a human being, having a spiritual being having an experience.
Yes.
But it also is the part of us that's curious, that wants something new. It's the part of you that said, I'm going to watch this empowering transformation series and I'm going to see what I can learn, right? Like, it's that part of our brains. But unfortunately, that top part and that bottom part are not typically good friends. They don't communicate very well with each other. And it's rare that you can get them kind of all three aligned. It's possible, but not common, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I like to explain how this part of our brain works with this really over the top analogy of jumping out of an airplane. So if you would imagine for your next birthday, you were going to go skydiving, and your higher brain comes up with the idea and goes, this is going to be fun and adventurous. And I'm going to show people that, you know, this age is still very, very cool. And I'm going to take a video of it. And your feelings and emotions hearing that voice loud go, yes, it'll get 1,000 likes. It'll be the best. Let's go do it. And so you go and you sign your safety waiver, and you put your jumpsuit on, you're feeling good. You watch your video. You're like, I'm ready to do this. You get on the plane. It gets to the proper altitude. You look out over the edge, and all of a sudden that critter brain clicks on like a light switch and goes, are you stupid? This is the dumbest idea you've ever had in your life. We're dying today. That's how we're celebrating this birthday. Poor decision. 0 stars. Do not recommend. Like, this is not going to go well for you. And it's in that moment that we have this opportunity to sort of break ecology. And by ecology, I mean, what is the baseline normal that has been set for you in your life, in your mind, in your experiences when you were coming of age, when you were just growing up and starting to form your own thoughts and things like that? Like, what's your baseline? You have the opportunity to break it, because how do you teach your brain that you can jump out of a plane and survive it? You jump out of a plane and survive it.
Like, oh, I need
Which sounds terrifying, right? Which sounds terrifying. But the truth is, after like the 4th or 5th time, then you'd have all 3 areas of the brain lit up, and you'd be like looking at, you know, young people that are doing it for the first time, shaking, be like, watch this, you know, and you'd be going out. You'd be all clicked together and stuff like that. And that's an impractical example, but what does that play out in real life? Well, in real life, it looks like a 17-year-old girl who is very comfortable in her skin and feels very sexy in her body and gets sexually assaulted, and then puts on weight after that and deals with depression after that, and flash forward to 30 and she wants to lose weight, but she will lose it and put it back on and lose it and put it back on.
Because it's a
not
safety
know why
issue.
and be beating herself up that she's not, nothing's happening. And the truth is, there is that subconscious part of her that's saying it's not safe for you to be thin, because that's what it learned. And because it's protecting love, safety, and belonging, it's not safe for you to be thin. So
yeah,
there it is. Like, that's how we get stuck, is whatever our goal is in trying to keep that love, safety, belonging. And here's the weird thing.
Glitched right there. Can you repeat that in case the recording didn't pick that up?
Which part?
Just the last sentence. It was the love, safety.
Yeah. So this is that part that can keep us stuck because your brain is going for that love, safety, belonging. And
Yeah.
so if you've experienced that, now here's the weird thing is that sometimes what it defines as safe isn't really safe. It was just normal. So if you have a little child that's grew up in an abusive household and that was their normal,
Then they
weirdly
get
enough,
conditioned
that
to
will
that.
become their safe. If you take them out of that, you put them with a grandparent that's not trying to hit them and just wants to hug them, they will respond negatively, violently at first because they don't know if that's going to kill them or not. They've already known that they could survive abuse. They've been surviving it. That became their normal.
That
So
baseline. Yeah. That
that's their
unhealthy
baseline.
baseline, but still the baseline.
Exactly. Even if the baseline's unhealthy, if it's a baseline that the brain has survived
And knows.
and knows and is familiar, it's like, okay, I know what to expect with that. It's why some people who have been in abusive relationships repeat them because it's their normal. And it's, again, this is just that thing that's meant to protect us that can absolutely hold us hostage.
But it can be changed.
It can be. There's the good. Okay, like let me just, for all of you that are going, oh my God, that's me. Let me just tell you that can be changed. And the first thing that I would tell people is that, again, there is hope. It can be changed. Jumping out of the plane thing. And the truth is, when you jump out of a plane for the first time, you don't jump alone. They literally strap you to another person who's made that jump 100 times. They're not afraid of it anymore. They're ready to jump with you. And that's what I do, like as a transformational coach, is I kind of get in it with you, help find what your normal is, help you see what your normal was and how it's in the way of what you want your normal to be, and help you learn how to kind of author that differently, to rewrite your story in a way that will change your normal and serve you moving forward, to go with you in that jumping out of the plane moment so that you're not doing it on your own. And that's not to say that people can't find on their own. Not everybody has to have a coach, although I would be remiss if I didn't say I think everybody could use coaching. I have a coach, right? Like I think everybody needs to have somebody, because again, that sense of community that we need, that sense of connection and belonging that we need. And belonging is not the same as fitting in. I tell my clients that all the time. I think we use fitting in as a cheap imitation for real belonging, in that belonging is when you're being that vulnerable, truest, purest part of yourself, and somebody loves you exactly where you're at in that place.
Exactly.
And I get to love people for a living. I mean, like, that's what I get to do. And it's powerful to love someone while you're teaching them to love themselves.
I had such a hard time loving myself. The negative self-talk that went in through my mind for decades, it was just brutal. I would never I didn't ever treat anyone the way I was treating myself.
Right. Yeah. Our inner bullies are pretty loud. But again, I would be willing to bet that was somebody else's voice before it was yours.
Oh, it was.
Yeah. And so we often, because again, that was your normal. You were just keeping your normal. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Somebody set that baseline for you, and you were just repeating the normal. We're like cute little broken records, right? We just like, whatever was our normal, we just kind of keep, and then we go, why does it feel like I'm repeating myself? Because you are.
Because you are.
Until you get the tools and learn that lesson. And most of us weren't, I mean, none of us were born with the tools. And most of us weren't given the tools because our parents weren't given the tools. And that's not me saying we're blaming our parents for everything. Everybody, it's not that. There's not anything to blame. If I can't teach you to use a hammer if I've never used a hammer.
Right.
And so I don't look at it like fault. I look at it like ill-equipped.
Well, and when the pain gets so bad, typically you are willing to have your eyes be open, and then you start seeing the result, seeing solutions. And Absolutely. If it's really bad, then you can move forward to make the changes. It's when it's not bad enough that you just say, oh, I'll just stay here.
Right.
But when it gets bad enough, it's like, I'm done.
Yeah. Or we play the comparison game, right? Like if we have been using the heel of our shoe to hammer in a nail our whole life, I'm going to use the tools analogy. Like if we've been using the heel of our shoe to do it, and we look at somebody else who's using their fist and they're cutting themselves and they're bleeding, we go, I've got it good. At least I'm not that guy that's trying to get the nail in with their fist. But then one day we see somebody with a hammer and we go, oh, what is that? Where has that been my whole life?
It could be so fast and easy as that.
Yeah, like that almost looks like it was made for this job. And it seems too good to be true. We're like suspicious of it at first because it's like, I don't know, my shoe's been working. I found a way, like I've got the right shoe with the right heel now. And I don't know, that hammer thing seems highly suspicious. And it takes time for us to realize that there are better tools out there. And you're right. Sometimes that means we hit rock bottom before we even go looking. But it's because we compare, right? Mm-hmm. I can't tell you how many times I have clients that will be in deep pain, experiencing real trauma, and they go, oh, but it could be worse. And I always stop them and I say, imagine if I said that to you when you shared that vulnerability with me. Imagine if I said to you, well, it could be worse. I'm like, would you keep seeing me? No, of course you wouldn't. You don't tell someone that just got punched in the face, well, at least they didn't stab you.
No, you have the painful punch.
Yeah.
It hurts. This hurts.
To say that because somebody else has it worse, I don't have a right to feel my pain is the equivalent of saying, I don't have a right to feel happy because somebody has it better.
Right.
Like when you hear it, it's like, oh, that's silly. Well, yes, it is. And so I think it's important that people start by validating themselves in their own experience. We always look for somebody else to validate us, right? We want to tell our story and we want somebody to go, that's terrible. But it's a job that we're often not willing to do for ourselves.
Yeah, I needed to hear verbal compliments to feel half decent about myself.
Yeah.
And that just was enabling, and it's not the way life goes. But
yeah,
I had a grandmother that was very good about complimenting, and my mother would at times be very good. But that's not the way to get through life, hoping that people will say kind words to you.
No.
And if that's your only way of feeling good about yourself, that's
right.
Really...
And again, it's that false sense of belonging.
Yeah.
Because you're needing somebody to feed that to make you feel secure because you've yet to do that for yourself.
Right.
But what you often end up doing too is to bend to fit that compliment instead of being real with who you are in the moment and letting that unfold in front of somebody.
Exactly.
Which is a very different situation, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I have people, when I explain this to them, then they're like, okay, now what?
Tell us.
I'm stuck and it's not my fault, which is great. How do I get unstuck? And the first thing that you have to do, I think, and that's why I mentioned that validation, is to sort of validate yourself. And you have to almost go through an emotional unclogging of the pipes for real transformation.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. I often tell somebody that's come to me that's looking to do change work, it's basically like, and I tell them we have to get some old stuff out first before we can move new stuff in. Right? Because it's basically like, I want to redecorate my apartment. So come in and I want all new stuff and I want it to look totally different. And then I go, okay, well, we got to get all this old stuff out. And they go, wait, what? I'm like, well, if we don't, and we leave these old paradigms, thoughts, belief systems, ways of being, and then we move these new thoughts, paradigms, belief systems in with it, it's the equivalent of moving in new furniture next to the old furniture. It's going to feel crowded, and then what are you going to do? What's going to be the first thing to go? The old familiar thing that's worn carpets, grooves in the carpets, and it already has its place, or the most recent stuff to come in? Well, that's going to be the stuff that goes, which is another reason that transformation doesn't last, because we're so in love with our stuff because it's familiar and it's mine and I've had it for so long and I need it and you don't understand. And I'm like, okay, well, you have to be willing to let that go in order to have a new way of doing things. Otherwise, it's the equivalent of you saying, no, I'm trying to get from point A to point B, but every time I do, I end up, I'm going to tell you, you can't take that road anymore.
Yeah. I was so afraid to tap into my personal power because I was afraid if I was powerful, I would leave my husband. And I wasn't willing to even, it's like, no, that is never going to be an option. I will always be faithful to my husband.
Yeah.
He treats me very well. But I couldn't step into my power because of that fear. Yeah. And then I'm like, wait a minute. He's not keeping me from this. I am the one keeping me from this.
Yeah. That's that love, safety, belonging. If I'm powerful, I'll lose love.
Mm-hmm.
If I become who I really am, they won't love me. So I'll lose love, safety, and belonging all in one fell swoop.
Right.
My my answer to that is this: did you really lose anything if, when you are yourself, someone disqualifies themselves and leaves your life? Did you really lose them?
When I
Or did
stepped
you
into
ever have
myself,
them to
he
begin
loves me
with?
even more and supports me even more. And it's just been such a beautiful, I'm like, why did I wait a decade?
Yeah, exactly. Because they probably saw that version of you the whole time. And it's
Yes,
just
and that was
waiting
one of
for
the
you
reasons
to
he married
unfold.
me, was he saw that I was powerful and strong and always wanting to learn. And
Yeah.
but then sickness and health just, it got me, and I just lost myself.
Yeah.
And
And
it
I
took me a while
think
to find myself.
that's true for anybody who's had any kind of long-term illness.
Yeah,
For anybody that's watching this that doesn't think that there is a mind-body connection,
there's such a mind-body
let me
connection.
just stop you right there. Let me just lovingly explain to you that if somebody jumped out and scared you, you would have a physiological response and a psychological response, and it would be simultaneous, because those things are married, period. So when you have that long-term illness and that becomes your normal,
Mm-hmm. And you, my identity. Who
and
am
your
I without this?
identity, because every group that you're in, every book on your bookshelf, every, friend that you've made in the last 5 to 10 years is all connected to that part. Some people even become addicted to the care that they're giving, because they're getting a deeper level of care than maybe they've gotten in their whole life. And if that illness gets better, they won't get that same level of care anymore. And they're scared to lose that. I can't tell you how many people that I've had with multiple chemical sensitivity or Lyme, or dealt with mold or some combination thereof, and struggled with the fact that in the whole of their life they didn't get deep loving care, but when they got sick they did, and they became in love with it and addicted to it because it was super validated and they felt cared for maybe for the first time in their life. And so to get well means I might lose that.
Yeah.
And no, that's hitting home for some people who are watching this. And I just want to tell you, that's okay. Like, it's okay to take ownership of the fact that you need that love and that care. But I also want to tell you that you can have that love and that care without needing to be sick to have it. Because we teach people how to love us. A, by how we love ourselves. And B, and this is a big one, by what we are willing to accept from others. And that's huge. As someone who came and had abusive relationships in my early life, I can tell you that when you accept someone treating you poorly, and you go, well, he had a bad night. Well, it was a bad week at work. Well, he just had too much to drink. He's not normally like that. And you excuse it. You're teaching that other person it's okay to treat you that way. You can stay stuck in that way too, because at least you're having love or some version
I
of
love
it.
it.
We settle for lesser things all the time, because there's that old saying, people will drink sand for a lack of water. And a lot of us grew up in a desert. So when we get a little bit of water, it's like, right? Like it doesn't matter where it comes from or what impurities might be in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you've been thirsty for a very long time, maybe because of your childhood or because of experiences you had, you will jump into that pool of not thinking about what bacteria or whatever's in it, or where it's been or who else has been in it. Yeah. All because we're just so thirsty. And I'm here to tell you that's okay too. You can heal and come out of that as well. But it has to start, and it's going to sound corny, and you've heard it, and you've read every affirmation. You have to love yourself first. But it's true. You can't pour from an empty cup. And worse, most people are operating with a hole in their cup because they went so long without filling it, instead pouring out for their kids, their spouse, their jobs, their families, their parents, their siblings, whatever it was, their friends, leaving themselves empty for so long that they have a hole in their cup, or it's cracked in some way. So then when they go to finally fill it, now that they've hit rock bottom, doesn't last, comes out the other end.
I know when I started filling my cup or fixing the hole in the bottom, that by having a daily centering practice,
yes,
in time, it would be like God would fold time for me. Yes. So I'd take 30, 45, an hour for myself.
Yeah.
And then I would be able to accomplish, so it just would flow together. I'm like, wow, I just accomplished by noon what I typically do during a full day.
Yes.
And during the times that that did not happen, I could still be in gratitude for what was and
Yes.
not beat myself about what did not get done. But I would just know God
That's
helps
right.
me literally fold the time.
Yes. Yes.
And then when that doesn't happen, that is the way, that is the beauty of that day, and to just be grateful for what is. But yeah, giving myself time to center ended up fixing that hole.
yeah.
And then
Yeah.
in
I
time, it
love
really
that.
changed. Yeah, it was beautiful.
That's huge. That's huge. Yeah. I'm a firm believer in doing that. I tell lots of people, if you don't have 20 minutes to meditate, take an hour because because you need it. And
Yeah,
it really is, it is a transformational thing to just sit with yourself and not need to be anything for anybody else in that moment, to not need to be accountable to anybody else in that moment, but to just sit with yourself and care for yourself like you would a small child. I'm an HSP, a highly sensitive person. There's going to be other people that definitely know what those little letters mean and
yeah,
know what
I'm
it
one of
feels like to
those
be
too.
that. Yeah. I just say I love HSPs. Like, I think we are just the best. And and it doesn't feel like that when you are one, right? Like sometimes,
Well,
because
you
we
get
really
sick
are.
walking down the detergent aisle at the grocery store because there's too much smells.
Yeah.
It's not very fun.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's just, we are the canaries in the coal mine. And especially with everything that's going on in the world right now, we are exhausted. Empaths and highly sensitive people alike are so running on empty right now and are so exhausted right now. And so I know that there's going to be a lot of you that are watching this that are just fatigued to the point that you don't even know if you can sit through all of this. And I'm going to tell you, A, hang in there, right? But B, this is the time to double down on your self-care like never before. Like you would if it was an infant. Like, too much light, turn the lights down. Too much sound, get in quiet places. Just really loving yourself in a practical way, not just in a, I'm going to eat this thing that makes me feel good, or I'm going to go on Amazon and buy all the things, or whatever it is that could be, or I'm going to have, a few more drinks than I normally would have, or anything that is going to, it's so tempting when you're like this to numb out and to want to numb out.
Right, and use substance to numb out.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like you said, the way I love to do it is I just go into my bedroom for like even 2 minutes,
Yeah.
and I reduce all the sensory input, dark room.
Yeah.
Sometimes I put earplugs in,
Yeah.
and I just breathe deeply and put my hands on my heart and
Yes.
relax for
Yes.
2 minutes, and then I can go back into taking care of the family or whatever the needs are.
Yes.
But yeah, yeah.
I'm the same way. I have you can't see it, it's off camera right here.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a whole like meditation area devoted to that. And my favorite thing in the world is candlelight, incense. Everything else is dark but the candlelight, incense, because I like the smell. The smell is very calming and it's connected to the olfactory area of your brain, and so it can create memories. And so there's this one particular incense that's been around, luckily, since the 90s when I was in my like rebellious hippie stages. And so it takes me back to a calmer time when I didn't have as many bills. And so it's just this beautiful moment of stillness. And I might put on really soft meditational types of music. Sometimes I need silence. But it's about asking, if you would just take the time, everybody, on a daily basis, and put one hand over your power center and another hand over your heart, and just say out loud, because you can't battle a thought with a thought, but out loud, ask yourself, what do you need? 4 words. What do you need? Just ask yourself. It might be, the answer might come back rest. Because you're asking not your brain, because your brain is kind of like the rider and your body's kind of like the horse, and your brain thinks it's so smart. And it's like, I read this article that we're supposed to eat this and do these kind of exercises every day because we're in our 40s now, and that's what this magazine says. And I'm quick to tell you that there is this inner knowing in our bodies, this animalistic, beautiful inner knowing in our bodies. And if we would just stop and check in with that on the daily, multiple times a day. What do you need? The answers that would come back would be so pure and lovely and simple that it would just open up and expand your mind so good. Because it might be, I need to sit for 10, I need to get sunshine. I need sunshine. You're going to hear, it's very animal stuff. It's like, I need something healthy to drink. I need water. I need quiet. I need peace. I need, it's not going to be these deep existential stuff. That's your brain talking.
Well, and what's interesting is sometimes when I'm in such a state, my brain will be like, I don't know. But so I change it to an open-ended question. Yeah. What would it be like if I knew what I needed?
Yes, I love
just
that.
having that extra little whatever, it gets into a different part of your brain. And it's like it accesses somewhere else.
One of the things that I found too is when I ask that question and I don't get an answer, that the answer was it just wanted to be asked.
Just needed
that was enough just for you to care enough to ask what you need.
Yeah.
Made you feel a little bit better than you felt 5 minutes ago.
Right.
And that's huge too. And I love that. I think that's a beautiful thing. Yeah. So what does it take to get out of your own way?
It's like getting my own way so much.
Right? Like everybody's like, okay, well, it's clearly me, and it's clearly because I had this crazy thing that happened in my youth, or this or that, or this thing that happened in my first marriage, or this thing that happened in whatever, and I'm stuck. Like, now what? How do I undo that? How do you said unpack stuff. Okay, what does that look like?
Yeah, what does that really mean?
Yeah, what does that really mean? It means you have to first acknowledge that the old is there and that it isn't working. Because sometimes before you can unpack a thing, you have to see it first. And I think for a lot of people, they don't even see it, right? It's all in a closet that they've locked years ago, that they're like, it's kind of like when we put vegetables in the bottom drawer of our refrigerator. We tell ourselves, I know it's there and I know it's good for me. I'll get to it later. And then what happens, right, is it festers and gets really gross and starts to mess up other things in the fridge. And then you've got a bigger mess to clean up than you had to start with. Versus if you were to take those same well-intentioned vegetables and you expose them to air and light, they could become compost and actually grow something really beautiful. And I think that's the biggest difference, is that one of the first things that you can do is just acknowledge it and talk about it. Like, get it out, get it exposed. Stop keeping it in that bottom drawer, telling yourself it's safe. I know where it's at, right? Like, I think a lot of people do that. I've even had people, I can't tell you how many clients have come to me and said, I've already done the work on this. Like, I'm good. I'm past it. And they'll be crying. And I'm like, then why are you crying? If it's done, really done, why is that wound so delicate that just the mentioning of it causes tears? Right? That tells me that's an unhealed wound, right? Like if I broke my arm in 2nd grade and it's healed, if somebody bumps my arm, it's not going to hurt. I'm not going to feel anything because it healed. But if I broke my arm in 2nd grade and somebody bumps it in my 40s and I go, and I blame them, you did this to me. And really it's a wound that I've had that I've just never dealt with, right? Then it doesn't matter how many times I've talked about that wound over the years with professionals. I might have talked to 1,000 doctors, but if I never did the work to actually get it healed, or it healed wrong because I attached really negative belief systems and thoughts about myself with it, then it's still going to be causing me pain down the road.
Yeah.
So it starts with just acknowledging your stuff. Just saying, okay, here's my stuff. And then you decide what works for you and what doesn't. It's kind of like cleaning out your closet. Well, I still wear this and it's good and it looks good on me and it's flattering. I'm going to keep it. Whereas this other thing, I like it and it's comfortable and familiar, but it does not look good on me. It's got 12 holes in it and it smells funny. I should probably get rid of it. And it's about walking somebody through their emotional and psychological stuff and finding out what is serving you
Mm-hmm.
What is guiding you towards that version of yourself that you expressed to me that you want to be? What parts, do you want to keep? And helping them to reframe certain experiences too, because sometimes it's just about looking at it differently.
That's very powerful. It is.
It is. I've had people, I had a client recently who was talking about a tumor that they had, and how that tumor helped them get on a right diet and a right exercise regime and do all kinds of energy work. And it ended up putting them on a different career path to where they started pursuing holistic things and things like that. But that lump still wasn't completely gone. That tumor wasn't still completely gone. And they said that the only thing that they can think left is that they needed to get coaching with me, right? And I was like, but they kept speaking very negatively about it. And I was like, can I ask you a question? Because they were like, I've done everything about this stupid thing. And I was like, okay, what if we reframed that and you thought of it like your greatest teacher? Because if you think about it, this tumor, this thing that you speak with such disdain, changed your life for the better. Everything about the way you describe your life now is beautiful and lovely and wonderful, and you say that you love it, but the person that gave you that gift, the entity, the experience, the whatever that gave you that gift, you're speaking to that thing that's living in your body, by the way, with all those cells that are listening to you, and you're speaking about it like it's the enemy. But it's taught you more than anything else. And she just stopped and was like, right? Like, what would happen? So my question was, what would happen if you spoke at it like it was your greatest teacher, like you were grateful, like you thanked it every day? Thank you for teaching me to love myself better. Thank you for teaching me to shift the way I thought about what I put in my body. Thank you for shifting me in such a way that I check all my body products and stop using toxic things on me. Thank you for the way that you've taught me to love myself. Like, what do you think would happen if you did that? Right? And I think that sometimes reframing something that caused us a great deal of pain, when we look at the good that came from it, the beauty from ashes, as it were, and reframe that and stop hating it, I think beautiful things can happen. I think the same thing is true of anger and fear. When you look at most anger, it was to protect you from something that was causing you pain. Fear too. It was trying to protect you from something that it perceived could hurt you, right? And that doesn't mean that you feed it, right, and keep it and let it grow bigger, but it does mean that you acknowledge its existence and acknowledge the gift that it was, the intention behind it, and shift in that way. Like, I think really beautiful things can happen when you sit your fear down and ask it its real name, right? And find out that it was pain. Find out that it was hired on by the little kid version of you, and that maybe it's not even applicable anymore in your adult life, right? Maybe the person that invited fear over was like 6-year-old you, that something really traumatic happened that he or she couldn't wrap their head and their heart around, and they needed somebody bigger and stronger to come in and protect. And so they said, well, fear will do that. Let's get fear.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you start to be more curious than judgmental about what's going on.
Repeat that again. More curious than what? You glitched.
Judgmental. Yeah. When you start to become more curious than judgmental about what's going on in you, that is where the real change work starts to happen. Start to get curious, not judgmental. Like, stop judging yourself and going, it's terrible that you feel this way, that you feel that way. Every feeling is valid. We have this delusion that this group of feelings are good, happy, joy, peace, love. This group of feelings are bad, sad, mad, angry, frustrated. And to be further from the truth, there are no inherent good or bad feelings. There are just feelings. Now, how we respond to them can be healthy or unhealthy, right? But anger in and of itself is a perfectly valid feeling.
Well, and you're right. When you look at it as curious, sometimes I look at myself as a petri dish. I'm like, I'm experiencing emotion. I'm like, oh, curious. Look, that's Lori Kay experiencing this.
Yes.
It feels this way and it's that way. And I'm like, I don't really like that. And so I'll be like, I choose this. But I let myself feel it. feel what
Yeah.
it feels like in my body. I'm like, how curious.
Yeah.
I don't like playing in that play box, that sandbox.
Exactly.
Well, do choose this one over here. And that's been easier
Exactly.
to do as I've done more work on
Yeah.
myself. But the thought of how curious, having that
Yes.
be the first
Yeah.
go-to instead of
Yes.
judging, oh, I'm bad, or, this is
Yeah.
wrong, or
Right. Or telling yourself, I need to just be positive. I need to read my affirmations and I need to
and
just
just
be
stay in this good
positive and I
place.
need to make myself smile. And I'm like,
No, you
you
can't
can
just
give
be
yourself
real.
permission. Yeah. You can give yourself permission to feel something without feeding it. And so
Yeah.
that sounds like going, okay, I'm in a bad mood. Why am I in a bad mood? Well, it might be hormones. I'm 3 days away from my period. It might be because these 3 bad things happened yesterday. It might be because I didn't sleep well. Okay, I'm allowed to feel like this. I'm allowed to be having a bad day. It's okay for me to not be okay. But you know what? I do have a 100% success rate of surviving every crappy thing that's ever happened to me. And I have a 100% success rate of things not lasting forever. So I'll just remind myself of that and recognize that it's okay for me to not be okay right now and that maybe tomorrow will be different. And that's it. As opposed to, I'm having a crappy day. It's always going to be crappy. And tomorrow's going to be crappy. And next week's going to be crappy. And my whole life is crappy. Like that's that feeding of that
Yeah.
emotion.
Well, and what's so funny, Marie, is like when I get in those states, I have these tools that totally work. But sometimes I can apply them, but when I'm really, really in a hard spot,
Yeah,
there's no way I can apply those tools.
that's
But if
right.
I had someone else that I could turn to that would say, okay, Lori Kay, let's do
Yeah.
this, let's do
Yes.
that, then I might be able to have the hope of
Yeah.
actually doing the work to make the difference. And that's
Exactly.
where it's nice to have some sort of connection with someone who
Yes.
has that ability, because
That
some
belonging.
days
We need
I
that
just
belonging.
can't do it on my own.
No, and you know what? We weren't meant to do it on our own, and that's okay. I think that's the big delusion that we tell ourselves because mental health has become such a stigma, in our society that if we're feeling anything other than happy, positive, joyful, peace, then there's something wrong with us. Like no one's taught us, and our parents didn't teach us that being sad, angry, something other than happy is okay and part of the normal spectrum of feelings. Instead, we had parents saying things like, don't cry, it's okay, everything's fine, or don't cry or I'll give you something to cry about.
Yes.
Right? Like when you have that experience, it taught you as a child in that sweet little beautiful child mind that if you're anything other than happy and compliant, you're doing it wrong.
Right.
So we kept any of those feelings that weren't happy and compliant and locked them away like a secret because it was shameful and it was bad that we felt this way and we weren't allowed to talk about it. And so that's why so many people tell themselves they have to do it alone, because they have this real shame connected to the idea that they're not allowed to feel anything outside of that very slender spectrum of good, positive, happy vibe feelings. And I'm here to tell you that I'm a coach and I specialize in communication and emotional wellness, and I get pissed off regular. I get sad on the regular, and it's all okay. And I allow myself, in fact, I communicate to my family, I'm having a day where I feel angry and I'm not really sure why, but I'm just letting you guys know that it's not personal, it's not you, and I'm going to try to not leak on you guys, but that I'm acknowledging this thing about myself today and want to let you know too. And that's it. And my family loves me in that place. And sometimes that means they give me space. And sometimes that means they give me cuddles. But the point is that whichever one I'm asking for, or, but that I'm being aware of my feelings and I'm saying them out loud to let people know it's okay that I'm feeling like this. But what I've done in that is I've also taught my children, it's okay for you to have feelings outside of happy and joyful and wonderful. Like you
Yeah, and
can
you're not vomiting them all over other
Sure.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've also taught them healthy ways to express those feelings that people in society perceive sometimes as negative feelings.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
think that's
Marie, we have maybe about 5 more minutes. What do you want to sum up with takeaways for us? How would you like us to spend our last 5 minutes together?
Thank you for that. I feel like I could talk about this all day long. I've loved this.
Oh, I wish, and I have another interview in just a handful of minutes. I'm like,
No, I love it. I love it. Honestly, I just want people to recognize that they aren't alone. And this free gift that I'm giving you is going to give you that practical application of like how to get past this, right? Like how to get out of this stuck thing and to really give you, because there was no way I could have fit that into this time period as to how to do it, which is why I wanted that to be my free gift to you guys. But honestly, the biggest thing that I want to tell you is that you aren't alone, that being sensitive and looking for this kind of change work and being the mountain climber, as it were, because, you know, there's lots of people in this world that are content to circle the mountain. But those of us that want a different view than the norm are the mountain climbers of the world. And the truth is, the higher you go on the mountain, the less people you're going to see there. And so it can feel very lonely there. But I just want to remind you, as I'm climbing the mountain, maybe on the other side, that we're all here, we're all together. And this is one of those rare, beautiful times when a group of mountain climbers can kind of come together and recognize they aren't alone, and recognize that there are so many specific and beautiful tools to help you get that better view that you want, to help you stop circling the mountain and to change your experience. And I just am so grateful to have gotten to be a part of the collective voice that you guys are going to be exposed to in this whole series, to help you do that, to help you have those tools, and to just be reminded that this is so normal. And that transformation can be had, and it doesn't have to be overly complicated. It's going to start in the simplest and most beautiful of ways. And I'm just so excited to have gotten to be a part of that with you guys.
Oh, Marie, thank you so very much. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate those that have opted into this series and to choose into hearing and applying and having hope that things can be different.
Absolutely.
And it's possible. It is possible to learn how to release stress and even past trauma, and to tap into a place that is peaceful, and to get this strength to be able to move forward. I've seen it in my life, and I know that other people have seen it in their life. And I know as we connect to our heart and our personal power and our higher power, that connection just, the pathway begins to happen as long as you don't give up.
Yes. Yes. And when you give up, that's just the time that you need to reach out to another person, so that you're not feeling like doing it alone. That way, that other person, when you're tired, can take you by the hand and say, "You've got this. I'm with you. This is a safe space for you to be, and you're going to get to the other side of it." Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope everyone has the most beautiful day filled with peace and love and laughter. Now I want to say Satnam, but I'm a yogi.
I love it.
Satnam means my truth in me sees your truth in you. And I love you for who you are, where you are at. And that's what Satnam means to me. So
I love that. I love it. Well, thank you again so much for having me. I'm so grateful to have been a part of this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Marie. And listeners, have a lovely day.